Hey everybody, this is Steve Martin. I'm with Jeff Redding and Dan Droz. This is Seattle Today.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we couldn't be happier that Mr. Blaine Cook took some time out of his Sunday morning to
Outstanding.
grace us with his presence on this rainy day.
Thank you for the invitation.
Let's get that mic right up in the grill hole.
All right, there we go. How's that?
Lovely.
Yes, thank you.
How's it going, Blaine?
Very good.
Yeah.
It's a typical rainy Seattle Sunday.
Yeah. How do you like the digs?
This is pretty cool. Yeah, I was trying to think the last time I came to a show here at the Moore. I think it was the Cult. I think was the last time.
Which was like the electric?
Like about 2 years ago?
No, the time before that,
Okay.
probably more like 10 years ago. I think they were doing when bands were doing that thing where they tour on and play like one record all the way through or whatever.
Oh, Love probably.
I don't know. My wife was a fan of the Cult, so
yeah, I like that band.
Yeah, they're a good band. Yeah.
What was the first time you were here? If you remember,
the first time I was here, I think, is when I played with. I think the 10-Minute Warning played with the Dead Kennedys.
Here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think it was here because I always get shows that were here mixed up with ones that were at the Hippodrome. So so that might have been the Hippodrome. Maybe it's when I played here with the DKs with the Accused.
Right. And what's the Hippodrome?
The Eagles Auditorium.
Okay.
So they had the big room that was upstairs. That was called the Hippodrome, and then they had a smaller room that was downstairs. I think they called it the Eagle's Nest.
And what neighborhood is that?
That is
Where's that?
on like 6th and 7th and Union.
Oh, downtown.
It was.
It's downtown.
They unfortunately gutted it and turned into a retail space.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was a bummer.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a Target. Maybe we can go there and get underwear later.
Yeah. Reminisce the ghost of
Dead Kennedys
punk
underwear.
shows past.
Yeah. Okay, so you were in the Farts. You were in 10-Minute Warning.
Yes.
You were in the Accused.
Yes.
Yeah, still in the Accused. And Accused.
We do that as a side thing. It just kind of like it's more to rile up one of our former bandmates that likes to go on the attack against us. No, our band that we do now is called Toe Tag.
Okay.
We've been doing that for about 15 years now.
Awesome. And so what was the first band you were in?
That was the Farts.
And, okay, so where did you go to high school?
I went my freshman year, 76, 77. I was at Roosevelt. And then the other 3 years I was at Garfield.
When you moved to Roosevelt, so did you meet a bunch of, were some of the guys from the Farts, were those high school friends of yours? Or how did?
No, they were, actually those guys all in the Farts, they were they were a couple of years older.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, with the exception of Tom Hansen, the guitar player. But he lived up north. He was from Edmonds.
Oh, all right.
I mean, guys I met, my freshman year at Roosevelt, I met David Ross, who later on became David Griggs, who went on to be the bass player for 10-Minute Warning.
Okay.
And I met him. He was because I was trying to be a skateboarder then, and he was on the Ride On skateboard team.
Oh, cool. There was a skateboard team in Seattle?
There was, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That was kind of during that first kind of mid
Popularity
to
of
late
it.
70s era of skateboarding. Yeah. And the Ride On skateboard team was the big one. I think there was one on the east side, the Bike Factory, those, a small handful of shops that had teams.
The Bike Factory right by Skate King by chance?
Yeah, that was one of those places I only heard about because I didn't really have any reason to go out to Bellevue.
Right.
Did you join the Farts or did you help start the Farts?
I think it was just kind of an organic thing, so I don't know that it was really anything that started it. I think the guy that started it was Steve Hoffman, a.k.a. Steve Fart. I think he was kind of like, the main guy behind it. And, we had been friends. I'd met him probably the later end of 1978. And we started to go to shows, mid 79, early 1980s. And that's...
Like local all ages shows?
Local all ages, stuff that was going on at the Showbox.
Yeah, like who?
I mean, God, you name it. And the cool thing about going to the Showbox back then is once they got their money that they needed, they stopped. You could just walk in.
Charging?
Yeah, they stopped charging. So, if you just wanted to go see, the headline band, and we were just, kids skateboarding around downtown, you knew that you could go in
at the end of the night or something.
At the end of the night, I mean, I saw Iggy Pop for free. Just walked in. The 2 times that he played there. Were a couple that I got in for free. But, I saw the Jam and Ultravox and Squeeze and the Fingerprints and the Plasmatics and the Ramones.
Wow.
You saw the Plasmatics?
Yeah.
Wow.
At the Showbox.
Yeah. But actually, that was a show that we got to work at. So,
Okay.
however, that organic, all that stuff that happened over the course of
Right.
6 or 9 months, we found ourselves, working.
And
the
like, so
Showbox.
what did it look like when you say you're working it? What does that look like?
We were hanging flyers. We got to work security, checking people to get in. And, some of the other, things that happened there, James Brown.
Right.
Muddy Waters is his All-Star Blues Band. Those are shows that we got to play and that we got to work at.
Right.
And that was at that when I was friends with Regan Hagar back then. We had another friend of ours named Dan Fullington, and we were kind of like had our little crew,
Yeah.
and we would take people's money, and instead of selling them the ticket, we would
Keep the ticket?
we would keep the money.
Oh, keep the money, right.
Just give us your $5. You can go in and
Right.
we had a little bank account, that we were saving up money, and we'd go eat dim sum down at the King Cafe in Chinatown was something we'd do with our money.
Right. And that's and so like what year does the Farts kick off?
The Farts, I think we started tooling around probably in the late 1980. I think the first show we did, I think it was near the end of 1980. We had a house in West Seattle called the Gas Chamber that we lived at, and were pretty much hated by the Admiral District community of
Right.
White Center.
Of
West Seattle.
Doing some living room jams that were probably
doing some living room jams, and that's back when, I mean, if you dropped a plate, I mean, the cops would be there,
Oh, they were attentive.
They were very attentive, yeah.
Really?
Unlike,
Wow.
Yeah.
Unlike now, where
Unlike
it's like
today.
you
Yeah,
can
right.
you can hit someone in the face and the cops don't come.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can shoplift.
Yeah.
Oh, no cops.
Right.
So and in 1980, how old are you?
18. I was born in 62. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I would have been 18.
Okay, and so the Farts start, and it's so but at its inception, you're the singer.
I'm the singer.
Yeah, it's amazing, and that goes on for like how long are the Farts a band?
So the Farts were we did that first party show that we did at the Gas Chamber, and then I think we did our first where we played at a bar. I think we played the original Gorilla Room that was down there on 2nd Avenue,
Right.
and I think that was probably in January of 81, and then we kept playing. We did, I think we got our first time to play with the Dead Kennedys probably around the spring of 81, which coincidentally was the same. We played with the Dead Kennedys the same night that Motorhead opened for Ozzy at the Paramount.
Oh, that was that show.
Yeah,
then.
and
Okay.
I had tickets to that, and I couldn't go because I was doing this.
You played.
We were playing the
Right.
same night.
Because Regan came on and told us how he had to, what was it?
Regan, I think, left the Showbox load-in to go
Yeah.
watch Ozzy.
Yeah.
Well, to watch Motorhead.
No, to watch Motorhead.
And then had to go back because
And
he
then
had to
had to go
work the
back,
show and he
right.
couldn't watch Ozzy with Randy.
Right, and we were probably
your-
some of the first. Because we were kind of starting to get into that, that British heavy metal, and that's you'd see the guys at those shows over there. It was big where they'd have like cardboard guitars, or they'd make banners, and we had made a Motorhead banner.
Oh, yeah.
That I think he ended up bringing, with Dan Fullington, and I
Nice.
think I ended up having to sell my ticket to David Griggs, and that's back when these guys were stealing money out of parking meters. And I think I don't know, the ticket was maybe like $8 or $9 or something like that back then, and I think Griggs, paid me $9 in quarters
Nickels
and
and
dimes and
dimes.
nickels they'd taken out of the parking meter.
You've got a handful of change, and you're like, oh, good.
Yeah.
Money was money.
Like,
Well, back then, money was money.
Yeah.
So then we did that, and then we had our guitar player, Tommy Hansen, who now is he's a writer. He wrote a pretty well-known book called American Junkie, where
Okay.
he chronicled his heroin abuse and his selling heroin to a lot of the
Next Gen.
Mark Aram and Lane Staley
Right.
and all those guys,
Right.
when they were all getting into that. So he went over. He was Scandinavian. He went over to Norway to spend a summer, and we had kept playing. So he was out of the band. We had Chris Crass or Chris Udding did one show with us, and then we got
As drummer?
Pardon?
As the drummer?
As a guitar player.
Chris Crass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's one of those guys, there was that small group of those guys back then were like, savants, so they could do everything.
Play the bass, okay.
Yeah,
Play the
Chris
guitar,
Udding
okay.
was one of those, and just like Duff was.
Yeah.
They could play guitar, bass, or guitar, and they
Right.
could play drums and sing,
Right.
and they could do it all.
And so, did the Farts record?
We did, yeah. We recorded a single that we put out ourselves, and I think we did it at Triangle Studios.
Yeah.
And whatever those guys were that ran that place back then, I can't remember, but I think we had like $100 or something to pay to record it, and that's we had to rent back when you would actually rent tape.
Right.
Because,
Right.
a 2-inch, because they recorded on 2-inch tape
Right.
back then, and it held 15 minutes worth of music. And I think even back then, a 2-inch tape was probably still like $75 or $100. And then you
Right.
had to, bump it down to a 1/4 inch. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
more money than we had. And then if you thought you were going to get a couple of cassettes at the end of the night,
Right.
yeah. So we did that single on our own, and later on, it got re-released on Alternative Tentacles in the UK.
Yeah. And what were that was a single, right?
That was a single.
What were the songs on there? Do you remember?
Con Game, Campaign Speech, How Long, You Got a Brain, Idiot's Rule. I think those eight or nine songs were on that.
On a 45.
On a 45, yeah. That was the thing back then. You try to jam as much shit on there.
Fast songs. Fast songs.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, back then we thought they were fast, but
Right.
what came later on
Right.
turned out to be a whole lot faster.
Right.
So we did that, and then we got Paul Soldier in the band to play guitar.
So after Tom leaves,
After Tom leaves, we had Paul Soldier came and played with us, because he was in a band called Soldier, and Soldier was almost how we modeled a lot of the stuff that we did with, because the singer of Soldier, Kyle Nixon, he was a guy who he was the first guy to bring Black Flag up to play in Seattle, and the whole model of Black Flag, putting out your own records and booking your own shows and touring around and doing all that stuff.
DIY.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, that's why you guys I like this record that I did, the 10-minute warning record that I did the DIY aesthetic, because that's I still I didn't future Duff Mckagan, or I don't
Right,
so
yeah.
that's a little bit and that's I did it purposefully with the packaging and whatnot.
Right.
So we get Paul Soldier in the band, and then we record another record for Alternative Tentacles, more of a full length type of a deal.
Yeah. And that's like around what year does Paul come into the band?
That 81, summer of 81.
Yeah. Okay. So, and it's just so crazy how, again, this seems like it took a decade.
Yeah.
But the whole thing from
18 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so Paul's in the band. Is Duff already in the band?
Duff's not in the band, so Paul's in the band. We recorded that record.
And the lineup is you and Paul.
Me and Paul and Steve and Loud.
Farts. Yeah.
Loud fart on the drums. And then, everybody back then, there's a lot of, the drugs and the alcohol. And this is kind of like when the whole, intravenous drug use thing was starting to kind of, people were,
Right.
that's what people were getting into. And it's like you're in a band, but you're not in a band, where you're not, this isn't like your focus. It's just kind of like something you do because that's what you do. But we were kind of like moving to where we were like more in a band to be in a band and be focused on that.
Right.
And then Loud ended up, quitting for whatever reason, whatever bad feelings were going on back then. I mean, I don't, I'm sure that if you were to ask him, he probably remembers, and it might still.
Maybe.
Yeah. So, and then that's when we got Duff. We, brought Duff in, and that was probably, we did a short run of shows on the West Coast where we played with Discharge and the Bad Brains, and we did a big one. We played the Oakland Auditorium, and we played the Santa Monica Civic, and that was in October of '82. And then I think once we got back, Loud was out of the band, and then we got Duff came in and played drums
At the end of '82.
at the end of '82.
So that really is the farts, the living, and 10-minute warning really are just like right in the same. It's all happening at the same time.
Yeah, totally.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
It is. It's just.
Yeah.
Would you guys get confused on lineups and names some days?
Not back then, no. Yeah.
Right.
And so, at what point do you transition from farts to 10-minute warning? How does that?
So
what does
we
that
got
look like?
so Duff came in. We were already working on some new material, and I think Duff's background was a little bit more musical, so he had more experience with that. So he had the in. There was a American Music, the one that's there up in Fremont. I think
Yeah.
it's American.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they had a little recording studio in there,
Right.
so we got in there and we recorded 5 songs. With Duff playing drums, and I think that was in November of '82, and then we released that as like a cassette as the Farts, and then we played one show in Portland near the end of November of '82, and then sometime in December of '82, maybe we decided that we were gonna change the name of the band to 10-minute warning so people would take us more seriously.
Right.
And then I think that's when,
That's fair.
yeah. I mean, because that's, used to be, I'm in a band, back then, you're in a band. What's it called? That's the Farts,
Right.
So that's when Steve quit. Loud was gone. Steve quit. Duff moved to playing second guitar, and then Greg Gilmore came in and was the drummer. We tried out a couple of bass players. One of the bass players we tried out that time was Alex Sebald, aka Alex Maggot Brain, who played in a band called the Maggot Brains with Regan,
Right.
which were kind of an early kind of a deal where it was just drummer, bass player, singer.
Oh.
Type of a scenario.
Prototype.
Right, for back then. So, and Alex, I think even back then he was more of a guitar player, so he kind of played more lead
bass.
lead bass, which I think was a little bit too much.
Right.
So they brought David Griggs on to play bass, and I think at that point we had a couple of different places that we practiced. There was a place that was over by Seattle U that I think it was maybe the Fastbacks and the Living practice, and I seem to remember it being like in a freight elevator in a building that was over there, and we jammed there. And then we had a spot just not too far from here, in between second and in between first and second. It was just kind of like like a warehouse kind of a thing that was in the basement, kind of like behind where the surplus store is here.
Okay.
And we had that for a while, and then we were jamming at this gal's basement. I think David Griggs lived at the house over by the Woodland Park Zoo.
And had David been in bands before 10-minute warning?
Not really. I think he was in a band called the Swads with Steve Swad, who later on, replaced me in the band.
Okay. Yeah. Steve Swad is Steve Verwolf?
Steve Verwolf, yeah.
Oh, okay. So David had played with him previously.
I think he was playing. I think he played in the Swads, and I think they were just kind of, back then you called it a fuck band,
Right?
And those guys were all into the Stooges and the MC5 and the New York Dolls and the Johnny Thunders, and I think that's what kind of brought on some of the IV drug use that was going on back then.
Sure. Yeah. Their heroes were doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was I going to ask you? Did you, and so you get those people in the band, you get the lineup, and the recording was from before you had Soldier? Or was Soldier on the recording? The 5 songs from American Music?
Soldier was on the 5-song recording. So the 5-song recording was Steve Hoffman on the bass.
Okay, Steve was on the bass.
Duff on the drums, me on vocals, and Paul on guitar.
Okay.
And we originally released it on cassette as the Farts, and the songs found their way on I don't know, like 4 or 5 different compilation records back then. And some of them they're listed as the Farts, and some of them they're listed as 10-minute warning.
Gotcha. And the record that you put out, what recordings are
the record that I put out has the five songs that we did with Duff. It has some live and rehearsal stuff on there.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And is the rehearsal stuff Soldier, Duff on guitar?
Yeah, Griggs.
Gilmore.
Yeah.
So it's the lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that band seemed to like that lineup seemed to have been like pretty important. Like next level, first band that was like had sort of like no weak links. Did you feel that?
Because they could play. They could play their instruments. Yeah, they're good musicians.
Yeah. And when did you meet Greg?
That's probably when we were doing that. I might have met him before.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back then, if I'm going out to see shows or whatever, I'm probably drunk, or I'm smoking weed, or I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not really paying that. I learned later on in life, probably in my mid 40s, that okay, now it's time to start paying attention.
To who's where.
Yeah. Who's where and who's who.
That's when I started.
Yeah.
That's when I started, mid 40s.
Yeah. And so let's see.
So we did some shows, and we had Kyle Nixon, who was once again the singer for Soldier. He was getting into doing big shows, and he booked some of those early shows at the Mountaineers Hall, and he was kind of like our manager.
Right.
So he got us. Once again, we got to do another string of shows with the Dead Kennedys. Jello Biafra was very, everything that I've been involved with. I mean, I've been, blessed or, lucky enough, to have that guy's support, which is, pretty, it's like playing a place like this. I mean, and that's kind of what's weird with how the music was back then, is the guys that were kind of into this punker thing got to do shit like this in these big rooms, but then the guys that were on the east side doing the metal shit, they didn't really.
Right.
They didn't get this opportunity to play these big rooms and stuff,
Right.
Which is kind of a weird thing that you would have thought it would have been the other way around.
Because for the metal to be in the bigger rooms.
Yeah.
And so why were there were no real metal DIY bands, right? I mean, like, why is that why?
I think there were metal DIY bands, but I think a lot of guys, if you were in a metal or a rock band, you already had some preconceived notions of what it meant to be in a band.
Right.
Right. So you wouldn't necessarily be trying to do it yourself. You'd be trying to source that out most likely. Right.
And I think that became later on. If you see like Motley Crue documentaries or whatever, and they're out there handing out flyers and doing all that kind of shit. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we were, we were doing.
Right. I see what you're saying though. When you're like, do it yourself, the
metal bands wouldn't have thought to do that.
Like, huh? Don't we? Right.
That's not how
don't
Priest
we get somebody
did it.
to?
Yeah.
Right.
So we did that. So the first show, we did a show at Washington Hall, and that's when Washington Hall they had the big room upstairs and they had the small room downstairs. So we did, and it was on the floor. You're playing on the floor. So we did the small room downstairs, and we played with the Accused. Obviously before I was in the band. And,
so it's 10-minute warning in the Accused?
Yeah, and I think it was maybe the Boot Boys maybe played, in a band called the Rejectors played that show. And then we played with the Dead Kennedys either here at the Hippodrome. I honestly don't remember.
Right.
And then we played with the Dead Kennedys down in Portland at a place called La Bombas, and then we played with the Dead Kennedys up in BC at the UBC, University of British Columbia. And then I think we came back. Once again, it's time's compressed.
It's crazy,
So
right?
I think by now maybe it's April or whatever, and we do a show in a daycare center in. I think it was in Gig Harbor.
It's 10-minute warning.
As 10-minute warning. I think
Right.
we maybe played with the Fastbacks and the Silly Killers.
Right.
And I think, after that, then, whatever, a week later, Kyle calls me up and, you're kicked out of the band.
And what year is that, do you figure?
That's 82?
82, yeah.
Yeah.
And Kyle was...
No. Was that 82 or are we into 83 now? We're into 83 now.
Okay, and Kyle is...
Kyle Nixon was the singer for Soldier, who was kind of acting as
he's
our...
the manager. Okay.
Yeah, he was
Okay.
acting as our manager.
Right, and he calls you and tells you you're out of the band.
Right. And I think we got like a write-up in the newspaper or something. I think we ended up...
Like in the Rocket?
the Rocket, or it might even have been like, the Times or, something like that. If you were lucky enough back then, like that, I think that guy Patrick McDonald or something was the local music guy.
Right.
If you were lucky enough to get a little write up by him or something.
Right. Well, apparently there's the famous Rocket cover where it's like the split cover of you and Culprit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, was it a big deal to be on the cover of the Rocket?
I guess I'd never.
Did you think that at the time?
Not really.
You were just like...
It's like, they asked me to do it. It's like taking a poser photo. That wasn't really my thing. So it's like, well, okay, you're taking my picture. What do you want me to do? It's like, okay,
Right,
it's
right.
like, I don't have a repertoire of rock poses,
Right. Not a lot of tools in that toolbox.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Well, and so that's not what you were after. That wasn't on your radar. It was surprising, but not like in a, oh my God sort of way.
It was cool.
Yeah.
Back then, we got some stroke in the Rocket,
Yeah.
some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
It was more, I guess it was more attention than I got, being a lowly high schooler, I was
Right.
kind of the odd man out in high school. So I didn't really,
Right.
I appreciated the attention and being part of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so end of 82, you get the call. And was that
So right, 81. So we get into the latter. Yeah. Okay, now I've crossed my
Adjusted.
I've crossed my years there. Yeah.
right. And was that phone call surprising to you?
I guess. I think they'd been planning it for a while. Because at one point they wanted me to, write down all the lyrics, so that they could have all the lyrics. It's like, okay,
You're like, well, that's never been asked before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, you're hearing the toot, toot, toot,
Yeah.
toot. It's
Yeah.
coming. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And so you're not entirely surprised, but whatever. And how soon after that are you, like, is there...
So that was 83.
That was 83.
Yeah. So that's springtime of 83.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it anything, how long is it between then and when you get asked to join the Accused?
Just about a year. So I think almost a year. I think I was asked to be in the Accused in like April of 84.
Right. And what did you do in the year in between?
In the year in between, I tried to go to school.
Yeah.
I tried to be a student. I tried to grow up.
Some.
Yeah. I was playing guitar. I was playing with a couple of buddies of mine. Our band was called the Carnivorous Chicken Band. I was playing guitar, and we had this guy named Pat Quirk, who's, if you're into the down and dirty, history of
The
skateboarding.
minutia. Yeah.
Skateboarding on the West Coast back then. He's a pretty renowned figure. And then
His name was what?
Pat Quirk.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine named Donald Brown that was playing guitar, playing drums.
Right.
And we'd jam in my mom's basement in this little closet that was. Donald's this tall guy. He's like a six footer, and this room was like so small. It couldn't have been 6 feet wide by, I don't know, 12 feet long. And these guys would always show up late. It's like, thank God my mom didn't mind us, starting at 10 o'clock, and where she lived, there wasn't really anybody to complain. But
Right. Where was that?
She had a house on Harbor Avenue in West Seattle.
Oh, just out and nobody else out there.
Well, where she was down there was kind of like, it's more, there's condos and shit down there now, but back then there wasn't any.
Right.
Yeah, there wasn't any other.
It was
neighbors to
industrial.
complain.
Yeah, it was kind of industrial.
Right,
Yeah.
so you could, nice, yeah.
Okay, so when you're in 10-minute warning and you're getting these shows and are you, I feel kind of conspicuous asking these questions, but it's like, but like, I kind of feel like 10 Minute Warning was the first band that like had no weak links. Like, and
I think they'd say that I was the weak link.
well,
That's probably how they felt it. But no, back then, I mean, no, everybody they were solid, and they were all, David Griggs was a phenomenal. He just, he was a natural on the bass, and obviously, both Duff and Paul. Paul's, one of those, they're naturally good players, and Greg Gilmore was just a solid drummer.
yeah. No, I'm definitely not saying. I'm saying there was no weak link even when you were in the band. I'm saying that's like all the way, like maybe I can't speak for anybody and when they decided to go with somebody else, but what you guys did up until the point where you left the band was sort of something that really hadn't been done before.
Yeah.
And I just want to like what was it like? And I don't know. And I know that everybody's still really young, but it's like, what was it like to have been so kind of popular in a thing that wasn't supposed to really, like, punk isn't supposed to be popular. It's like a bunch of...
I was probably not very nice to some people,
Okay.
Just because, it would be weird when people would approach you, and it's like, I would say that, no, I'm not that person. You're mistaking me for
Yeah.
For somebody else.
Yeah.
But it was a genuine, popularity where people were genuinely into it, versus how it got to be later on where, you're signing autographs and you're selling T-shirts and, you got chicks, wanting you to sign their tits or, all kinds of other stuff, it was it was just a different kind of a thing.
Well, and kind of, speaking to the part where it's like the rocket was great, but it wasn't your goal. It's like that same thing where it's like all of a sudden that you kind of turn a corner in this 10 Minute Warning band, and all of a sudden you've got this popularity that before was sort of reserved for these, like, for the Dead Kennedys or for DOA, like these other bands who were national, I guess. And all of a sudden you guys are getting that.
Yeah. And
it seems like that was you guys were sort of the first Seattle band to get that other than local attention.
Yeah.
And I don't have a good follow-up question. I just want to I just want to sit there and that's it's so strange to think of Seattle before there was a band, and maybe that's
did you feel like, oh my God, we're going mainstream? I can't, we can't believe
no,
this.
not because back then what was mainstream here in Seattle would have been a band like the Cowboys
or the Heats
or the Moberleys or shit like that, which is like basically bar bands.
Who wrote a couple originals.
Yeah.
You're recording, you're playing the bigger houses.
Yeah.
You're connecting with, other nationals.
Yeah.
So,
And then going back to, what I was saying about, the metal bands. I mean, there was other, bands that, were, big at that time, like Rail.
Yeah.
Rail. We were doing stuff, I don't know specifically what they were doing. I know they were, traveling and doing the high school circuit and all that kind of shit. But I mean, we were, we were doing stuff that was a little bit more, more high profile. And it was just such an organic thing. That's just kind of like, that's just kind of how it ended up happening.
Yeah, and I guess it's just so hard to consider Seattle before there was, before there were bands you could look to emulate as far as that. 10 Minute Warning was really the first band that people could be like, oh, they're popular up and down the West Coast. They're popular, like people all over the country have heard of them.
Yeah.
Where it's like there wasn't that band before.
Right. And that's when later on when we were in the Qs, we had the guy that was our manager was a guy named by the name of Mike Veraney, who later on went and he did Something Weird video, and he managed the Dead Kennedys and Black Flag, and he has a very, very sordid history. But there was a couple of lessons that he taught us about being in a band, and one was play to the audience. And the other one is you're not shit until you leave your fishbowl. So if
Right.
you know whatever you're so big in your own city, until you get playing out of your own city, that's when it matters, because you go play somewhere else. And for those people that are showing up to that show, that's a special thing for them. They've been looking forward to it, and they're coming out to see you play.
Right.
And that's why people still remember that. It's like,
Right.
shit, well, I wish I remembered, that I talked to you, in 1983, but I don't. And I'm
Right.
glad that you remember, because it was a special thing for them to go out
Yeah.
and see you play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's like, we've been doing, like we've decided to do this kind of deep dive on this time frame, and it's like I've been trying to figure out what it is that's so interesting about it, and I think that thing about like, okay, that's what was so special and unique and like kind of paradigm shifting for 10 Minute Warning. What is like they were the first band to get the underground acclaim, not like national, not like the Heats, not like, there probably wasn't radio play,
Oh, no.
except on maybe KCMU or whatever.
KCMU, right? You guys were on KCMU. Were you on Brain Pain every Sunday night or whatever?
Later on, yeah, we'd go down. I think, well, back then there was another one called KRAB.
Okay.
Was another small radio station back then, but
Yeah.
no, there was no radio airplay.
I just think, I think where Jeff's going is you guys weren't from New York, you weren't from LA, you weren't from Chicago, you weren't from one of these, or DC, one of these massive metropolitan cities that, was connected to that. You guys were from Seattle, and cool. People started to look. People started to listen.
And that's the beginning of what, I think that's the beginning of what ended up exploding and catching so many people off guard in 1991 when Nevermind comes out.
Yeah.
It's like that DIY, that's what I've been looking for. Is like, oh shit, that's what's so crazy about 10 Minute Warning. And so, yeah.
And then all the bands, later on, like Soundgarden. I mean, people wouldn't think that you're going to go see Soundgarden play at the Ditto Tavern,
Right.
In front of 25 people or something. But
Right.
that's just,
Yeah. It's unimaginable.
yeah. But that's how it was. That's what
Right.
you did.
Yeah. And so did you know any of the Soundgarden guys like in the early 80s?
Kim Thale was probably the only person that I'd met, and Ben Shepherd was in a band called March of Crimes,
Right.
with Steve Nelson, who later on became a drummer for The Accused.
Oh, okay. And what years is March of Crimes around? Do you know? Did you guys play the shows together
We did not play any shows together.
Yeah.
Not me. The other Accused did. So I mean, probably that's
previously?
around, yeah,
Before you?
yeah. So
Oh,
it's probably
interesting.
around that 83, 84
Yeah.
time frame.
Yeah. And Kim, where'd you meet him? Just
I think I met him at the Showbox. I think he was there at the Dead Kennedy show.
right.
And I've talked to him. I mean, they're years ago, if I came downtown Seattle, I'm gonna run into somebody that I know.
Sure.
It's not like that anymore. But I mean, he used to
Right.
just going around the city. You'd run into people. So
yeah. It's not like that anymore, is it?
no, it's not.
Yeah. Well, most of those places are gone anyway. So
Yeah, and nobody comes into the city. Downtown's not the magical spot.
yeah,
that it once was.
yeah. That's
We're
crazy.
here.
We're here.
Yeah.
We're the one magical spot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you get in The Accused, and you guys do quite a bit of releasing,
Yeah.
recording and releasing, and who's in that band when you get in the band?
I'm singing. Tom Niemeyer's on guitar. Chewy Chabon Batterman, bass player, and Dana Collins is the drummer.
Right. And that's 84.
That's 84. Yeah.
You joined that band.
Yeah.
And so what's the first recording you put out with them?
We did a self-release thing called the Martha Splatterhead EP. And it was a 12-inch that we actually recorded with Chris Hanzik. And that's when he had just moved. He had just moved to Seattle,
Okay.
and I was working at the Red Robin, and his girlfriend worked at the Red Robin.
At the University Bridge?
No, I worked at the one on 4th Avenue.
Oh, okay.
It's not obviously it's not there anymore.
No,
But
right,
yeah. So his girlfriend, I don't remember her name, but she worked there, and he had a little kind kind of like not really warehouse space, but just kind of like some space in a building that was kind of in the inner urban area where the golf course is, and there's a QFC down there.
Yeah.
He had a space down there and an 8-track. So we recorded the first stuff with Chris Hanzik down there. I think we recorded 5 songs and put those out on a 12-inch.
Right. And then and you put it out yourself.
We put it out ourselves, yeah, because I was carried on because that's what we did.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
And then what else did you do?
We did that, and then we recorded some more songs that were released as the Return of Martha Splatterhead, and that had that original 5 songs we did, plus like another 10 or 12, and then we were with the help of Mike Veraney, which we started working with Mike Veraney probably in the latter part of 1985, and he was able to get some of our songs put on a Thrasher magazine. They were doing a series of compilations, and we were on Skate Rock 3, Wild Riders Aboards.
Nice.
So we got 3 songs on that, and then he was trying to get us signed up, I think, for Frontier Records at that point in time, and that didn't happen, and we ended up getting signed to Combat Relativity out of New York, and we did the first record we did with them was called More Fun Than an Open Casket Funeral, and we had underground comic artist S. Clay Wilson that painted the cover of that LP for us.
Right.
And then we did another one on Combat called The Maddest Stories Ever Told. And that one we recorded with Terry Date, who later on became, a big guy. And, back then it was cool. It was cool working with him. That was probably one of the funnest recording experiences ever, because he knew guys, so he knew Sir Mix-a-Lot. So Sir Mix-a-Lot came down and did some backup vocals for us. And he knew Kurt Vanderhoof, who was formerly in the Lude, original Seattle punk rock band, and was in Metal Church.
And Metal Church, right? Yeah. So he came down and
did a lead with us, and we, locally the Accused we're extremely popular, and when the Rocket would do who the top 10 biggest selling bands of the week,
Northwest top 10,
we're always up there. But I think what we were doing was it was looked at as not sophisticated, more shit that was like for kids. So at that point, when we had those guys come and do cameos, I mean, we should have just had like this, wow, this is so fucking cool, these guys are,
blow it up.
Yeah, but we didn't. And then we got dropped. We got dropped from Combat, and we did a couple of things with.
Where did you do that record with Terry Date?
Fuck, I don't remember the name. It was
in town, though.
It was in town. It was over by over by the Seattle Center, by the Doghouse,
right?
When Guitar Center was moved over there. I can't remember if it's. I don't remember.
Not the laundry room, though.
No.
That was later. Way later.
It was one of those really expensive studios.
It was.
That's when when recording a record used to cost a lot of money.
Well, yeah, because there weren't any like low budget studios yet. It was all just tape machines and fancy rooms.
Tape machines, and you'd spend your first 2 days just getting drum sounds.
Right, having the guy tune your drums.
Yeah.
So and it was over by the Doghouse.
Yeah.
By where the music store was and the
Fuck,
King Cat
I don't remember if that was I don't remember.
Yeah, I'll try to look it up for you. Yeah.
And then we did that, and then we did a couple of things with Empty Records. Who Blake, later on went and did a bunch of stuff, and then then we got signed to Nasty Mix.
Right, and that was Mix's label.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, Mix-a-Lot, Ed Locke, and Glenn Boyd, and Nasty Ness, and all that group of guys that was there. That was really cool, because that was local, and they were really, really high profile, and you get to go down there, and they had their offices. Was it on Virginia, kind of like over by where the Greyhound bus depot was, and we'd go down there and fuck off. And I think in that building there was also like some modeling agency, so there'd always be all these hot young ladies on the elevator with us when we were going up. Yeah,
That's awesome. All right.
Yeah, what happened to Nasty Mix?
They spent.
What did happen to Nasty Mix
They
Records?
spent a bunch of money.
They
didn't
spent a bunch of money. I can't say this for the gospel, but the last stuff that we did with them was probably one of the final nails in their coffin, because we did the last record with them, and I think we were getting like $16,000 or $18,000 was our advance, and we recorded the thing for $5,000.
Nice.
So
Good.
we're pocketing.
Yeah.
$14,000. I remember I had that $14,000 in my pocket.
Literally?
in your
Yeah,
pocket.
literally in my pocket.
Your
yeah.
tight black jeans.
Yes. Well, interestingly enough, at that point in time, I was a preschool teacher.
Okay.
So I had, I was at work with my kids, and it's like, I've got this big knot of, $100 bills in my pocket, and then we did a video with them. As well, and I think that the budget for the video was like $8,000, and we did it for like $3,000.
Right.
So we
Pocketed the rest.
we pocketed the rest.
Name of the game.
Yeah.
I can see you walking into your class to teach preschool, and you're holding up like one of the accused LPs.
Yeah.
And you're like, everybody in the room is panicking,
Crying.
looking at the.
No, they all the parents and the kids knew that I was in a band,
Right.
and we'd go on tour, and we'd have a map in my classroom,
nice.
and they'd follow me around.
They would follow you.
We did a couple of European tours, and I'd call, and they'd get the kids on the phone, and I'd talk to them.
That's totally cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now you were talking about like what bands do you look at like Inceptional, what bands did you like that were local that you feel like were kind of special?
Well, for me back then, Soldier was a band that that was pretty inspirational and influential with me. I mean, the stuff that I was into was a little bit more harder. There wasn't really that kind of music that was coming from Seattle, but I like the early Black Flag was stuff that was really drove me. The Germs and Discharge, I think those three singers, Ron Reyes and Darby Crash and Cal, were
Prototypes.
If I was to say that if I was trying to emulate anything, I was trying to do
Right.
what those guys were doing.
Yeah. So your mom had like tons of houses, and
She did, yeah. Well, she started by like the first house that she bought when my parents got divorced was the one that was on Harbor Avenue, and it was like a well-known house. She used to have goats. The house was covered in shakes, and it had a big round window. It was a really recognizable house down there. So she bought that one, and I think when she bought that in like 67 or 68, she paid like $35,000 for it.
Nice.
And that was kind of like back before you could actually buy a house on contract from somebody.
Right.
It wasn't always going through the bank. She had that one, and then she bought the house that was in the Admiral District, 3915 Southwest Lander, that became the gas chamber.
Oh, okay, that was the one.
Yeah, we moved into there, and we were hated in the neighborhood. You'd go to the grocery store and get followed around by the security. At night, we'd go and steal
For good reason, right? For good reason.
I wasn't, but by then I'd given up my shoplifting ways. But I mean,
Right.
I know other people that I shared a house with hadn't given up their shoplifting ways. But
Right.
we'd go there at night. They'd have the big crates of watermelons out front. We'd load up the back of Tom Hansen had a VW Bug. We'd load it up with watermelons or toilet paper or paper towels or whatever other shit that they'd leave out
Right.
in front of the store at night.
All right. And so when Regan was here, he was telling us that when he was still living in Bainbridge and working at the Showbox, a lot of times he would just spend the night.
Yeah, that was probably at that gas chamber house.
Okay, yeah.
And we'd have bands, we had DOA, stay with us, and the Subhumans stay with us, anytime there was a band,
Yeah.
they'd stay at the house.
And you mentioned the James Brown shows at the Showbox. Did you stay for both of them?
I think he just did one set. He may have done two. But
Yeah.
yeah, I saw one. I saw the James Brown show.
Right.
Yeah. Had I known back then what it was that I was watching, I would have paid more attention.
Right.
But,
It's tough.
The whole thing when he comes out and he's dancing, and then his valet comes out, puts the cape on him, and the thing with those shows is I think because it was more for a black audience,
Right.
and I think people were coming and thinking it was going to be more like dinner theater, and there's no seating,
Right.
It's like what we got to stand up. This is
I
not very.
can't believe he got his whole entourage up there.
Yeah.
That's
Got to stand up for 5 hours.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Devo, we got to work Devo
At the showbox.
at the showbox.
Showbox.
Yeah. I remember having to because they needed full length mirrors in the backstage rooms back there, and I was helping a gal. Her name was Annie, and I was screwing the thing in to hold the mirror, the little bracket deal, and I slipped and I jammed the screwdriver into her finger and
Into Annie's finger?
into Annie's finger. She was a little less than happy about that.
Still
but
got a scar, I bet.
maybe if she's still around. She was an older gal back then. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so you ended up like roommates with Regan?
Yeah, then we had we had the house that was off of Harbor Avenue. If you're familiar with West Seattle, it's not too far. It's not too far from where the Luna Park Cafe is.
Right.
Yeah, we had that house. So we were. It was a big house.
And who all lived there?
Me and Regan, Andy, and a couple of different guys that lived on the island. Paul Lohman, Marcus, whatever his last name was, I don't remember. And then Marcus.
Marcus.
There's always a Marcus.
Yeah, to tell you the story about Marcus.
Let's hear it.
Well, we were into cereal back then, so we'd eat a lot of cereal. Lucky Charms were our cereal. So Marcus, now,
God bless him.
God bless Marcus, but there was people that always take your food, So bunch of. Okay, now, bear with me. I know the story sounds crazy, and I can't really substantiate that this is actually what he was doing, but.
Allegedly.
Allegedly,
Allegedly.
in his room, this was maybe after we kicked him out or he left or whatever. In his closet was a bag of marshmallows that had been ripped open that looked like it had been squeezed. Supposedly, the bag of marshmallows fell on a cube of butter that was standing upright, and then there was an empty can of tuna. That was it.
Oh my God.
So,
Marcus.
you can put,
So let's not have a last name on that one.
I don't even remember what his last name was. Yeah. So he was there, and then we had another buddy of ours back then. He moved in for a little while, and his name was Akbar Kareem. He also went by the name of Eric Lee, and he was probably one of the first black kids in Seattle that was sprung on heavy metal.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, did you catch what was going on with the tuna and the marshmallows?
Yeah.
Was having sex with it?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. You looked a little. I didn't get any register.
No, I was.
It's a-
No, I'm not going to lie. I was a little confused out of the gate, and then I was just like, "Whoa!" Now I see why they kicked this guy out. Because I feel like it was hard to get kicked out of that house.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, apparently that's not why you kicked him out. You found that
I don't
afterwards.
even, that's just back where
Allegedly.
everything. Yeah, allegedly, that's where everything happened so quick. And we were jamming in the basement, collecting mattresses and everything, to make
the
it soundproof
windows.
as possible.
Yeah.
But it was still like one of those things where the neighbors, instead of because we'd jam like Saturday afternoon or whatever. And so instead of them coming and knocking on the door, it's like, hey, how long you guys gonna, cops would be there,
Yep.
all the time,
Well,
all the time.
that was always a worry. I remember that.
With doing everything
Yeah.
was a worry with
Cops.
with the police. Yeah.
And so, what other bands were there? Like, so that house. What other bands? So you had you, and you had the guys from Malfunction. Were there were some of those other guys in bands, or was that kind of?
No, that was it. No, they
Yeah.
were just like guys. I think Paul Lohman was I think he worked at the espresso stand that was there at Nordstrom's.
Right.
Later on in the shoe department.
Yeah.
But
And then you guys played, but you guys played like which band played Metropolis? Was that Tim and Orning?
after I was in the band, they played. Yeah. They
Okay.
played the Metropolis.
And then the Accused play there? Did you play there?
No, I never played the Metropolis. No.
But and did you play the Grey Door?
I played the Grey Door as the Carnivorous Chicken Band. Yeah,
Right.
With Malfunction.
Right. And you were friends. What was the guys? Who had the Time Travelers?
That was. I think Dave Lamb was actually the guy that owned Time Travelers. Then it was Jim Lightfoot and Mike Vraney that opened up, originally when they opened up, probably like, 79-ish when they started selling records out of there. And I can't remember if it was called Acme or Corporate Records. And they just had, a little thing over there, little corner in the store where they sold records and buttons and, just shit like that. And then, as it got into the 80s, they, moved in and, started it became less of a comic book type of a store, became more of a record, skateboard shop.
Yeah.
It was just down from here.
Yeah. It was.
It's like,
You remember that?
totally remember Time Travelers, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was, back when you got to do stuff like back then, like doing an in-store, come meet the band, and fuck, all these fucking kids would show up, and it was just nuts.
Yeah.
And then we get to go down there, and because there'd be periods of time back then when we were doing music where we didn't have to work.
Right.
So we'd always we'd come downtown. You get to go in there and smoke weed in the bathroom, and there was a teriyaki place that was a couple of doors around the corner. You get a bowl of chicken teriyaki for $2.50, and you'd
Yeah.
Sweet, not even $5 yet.
no, not even.
Right.
Now that you can't get one for under 20.
Nope. It's 20 big ones now.
Oh God, my wife and I went out for breakfast yesterday, and it's like basic egg breakfast for the two of us, no coffee. It's like over $25.
Yeah.
Then when you tip them, it's like, oh, I just paid you $30-some for, and it wasn't even. There's nothing remarkable about it.
There's no cocktails.
No. Oh, don't even
What?
don't even add a Bloody Mary.
Double your
Greyhound
bill.
or nothing.
No.
All right.
Oh, that's
All right,
crazy.
then.
Well, awesome. That's I think that's great. That's like that scratched the itch.
Yeah, I could say other stuff, but I think if you're just more interested in that in that time frame, I think you've squeezed me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
You squeezed me dry for what I've got.
I'm not gonna lie either. I was extremely young, like grade school, going into junior high when a lot of this was going down. I was on a steady dose of corporate heavy metal, out of Fred Meyer's and Kmart and on and on and on. And I slowly started making my way to Seattle. Time Travelers. There was this like other shop where you could buy spiked wristbands and all this stuff, and we would be going
The Gob Shop.
and then the Gob Shop, and then we slowly start going to these shows, and I'm just like, holy shit, this is not the Scorpions. And I also would remember I would see your record albums, I would see the covers, and I'd be the Accused, and I'd just be like, I'm afraid of these guys.
Totally.
I'm totally afraid of these guys.
And what's so cool if you look at pictures of the audiences back then, they're just like dudes. It's just like you guys are there. It's like it's just like there's
no one had gear.
No, that's what when there was always the thing where the the jocks would be driving around, you punk rock dude. You're just looking like. What they thought was you were so weird. It's like
You had maybe a little short hair somewhere, something a little spike, something.
Yeah, and even back then, if you wanted like if you wanted a spiked belt or the wristbands, you had to go up to the Crypt up on Broadway because that was a gay leather thing. That wasn't you weren't just going.
At Hot Topic.
No,
Spencer's didn't have them.
Yeah, and you had to pay real money for it too.
Yeah, because it was real gear.
It was
like it was bondage gear. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But that's what's good about being old. You can
Yeah, now you can get everything at Spencer's.
Or on Amazon.
Yeah, you don't even have to leave the house anymore.
Amazon, take care of that.
You don't even have to leave the house anymore.
Yeah, excellent. All right, well, Dan, this has been Seattle Today.